Okay, hi everyone. So I just wanted to make this video because I've seen the video that Silverwing has managed to produce about the projections and the possible ways that you could add decals to objects within Octane. I understand that the video in question is using has used Cinema 4D, but I only have access to 3ds Max, and this is my primary tool. So what I wanted to talk about was basically one of the methods that was mentioned as a way to decals was using Octane's projection mapping, which can be a bit tedious at times, and like Silverwing has mentioned, the problem is that the projection gets projected on all sides. So basically, what's going to happen is if you project from the top left or whichever side you choose from, that projection projects into infinity, and whichever surface it captures is going to project on that surface. So what I've got here is a different setup. And what I've done is I've actually combined the texture and the projection as well as a mask for that projection, which basically allows Octane to work a little bit like RVT textures in Unreal Engine, if you're familiar. So it's like a thing that it stands for virtual real-time textures or real-time virtual texturing or something along those lines. And what it does is it simply allows you to place a texture on the surface and use like a help or a box or whatever you like to signify where you want that texture to appear. So for example, what you're seeing on the screen has a very similar effect to that. So I can choose wherever I want this texture to be, and if it's part of that box, it will appear. So it mitigates the problem of having the texture be projected across the entire length of space, whichever side that happens to be projected on. So if you look at the material setup of this, it's actually quite simple. You have a standard texture. The way I've done that is I'm actually using layers, because that way you can add layers upon layers upon layers, so you could have multiple decals sitting on the same object. And you could transform them between different instances by just using Octane projection. So if you notice, I can move this auto texture away from this sphere and onto this glass surface, and it will just sit there just fine, you know. So it could be sitting here, or I can move it up, and I can basically move it wherever I want to, and so long it's part or so long it's within that square that you're seeing on the screen. I understand it might be a little bit hard to see. Suppose I could change the viewport settings here to just use green color. That worked. Try that again. All right, there we go. Okay, so you can see that cube is penetrating the surface of that sphere, and that's getting projected, but it's not getting projected on the bottom face. But I can choose to project it on the bottom face if I just move that onto the bottom face. You can see that's getting projected on the bottom now. It doesn't yet work with rotation, but that's just because I haven't set it up. So it definitely can. And I'm sure there's skilled scripters out there who can just do this in one click. I use the kind of long way around. I have to make sure this helper is directly linked to the projection of the mask, and that mask is split up into 3 different directions. As you can see, there's a mask from the top, there's a mask from the right hand side, and there's a mask from the front. And that way we get to cover all 3 angles, and basically we can signify a negative space where the actual projection occurs, and everything outside of that space will not be visible as part of Octane. So I felt like this was a decent way that you could do this effect, and it's very, like I said, it's very useful because it's so much simpler if you can see that in the viewport. You can move the texture up and down, left or right, while you're seeing on the screen, as opposed to having to tinker with the values within the transforms. So yeah, maybe to clarify a bit more, what I've done here is basically I've signified these 3 directions, and they are all basically just a gradient texture that's got an XYZ to YOV mapping within Octane, and it happens to have a transform coordinates that match this square. And so long your unit setup is equal to Octane's unit setup. So a value of 1 in Octane will be a value of 1 in 3 as max, or whichever the software it is you're using. You should get the same effect. So yeah.